This is lecture 18, and we have had a couple of lectures on discussion of combustion wave propagation, and we were doing an one dimensional analysis, constant area flame, ideal gases, constant properties, things like that. We discussed the assumptions previously, and we saw that there is a mass conservation equation, there is a momentum conservation equation, there is also an energy equation, and from those we developed a Rankine-Hugoniot relation and also a Rayleigh line equation. And we were trying to represent everything on a pressure versus specific volume plot. So I had shown you the Rankine-Hugoniot curve on P versus 1 over rho plot, and also the different Rayleigh lines. And in the last class we could see that we could identify at least that there is a point U which is a Cj point, the upper Cj point, that is where the practical detonations are most likely. So we identified that, and we also saw that at that detonation point U2, which is the velocity of the burnt gases relative to the combustion wave, was sonic, and the wave speed was actually supersonic. So we had seen some of these things, and we also saw that in case of a detonation the burnt gases in fact follow the combustion wave, right. So there are certain things like this which we could do. Now again, it is good to remind ourselves that we are doing a simplified analysis, and we are just saying this, that okay, we know the state 1, which is the unburnt state, characterized by pressure, specific volume, temperature, and based on that we are just trying to see where will P2 be like, where will be state 2. So we do not exactly know, the theory will not be able to tell us where exactly state 2 will be, but if the state 2 is at a particular place, at a particular region, then we can say something about state 2. That is the approach that we took. So let us go back to this plot which we used previously. This is central to our discussion, and remember again that this 5 is ruled out because inaccessible region, and this 1 is a strong detonation region and 2 is a weak detonation region. Similarly, there are deflagration regions 3 and 4. So this is pressure versus 1 over rho. Again, the hyperbola that you see, that is based on the Rankine-Hugoniot curve, and the straight lines which you see running through the point A, which is state 1, these are all Rayleigh lines. It is good to remember that this is also a Rayleigh line and this is also a Rayleigh line. Okay. Now we have some idea now, we have done some analysis, but since it has been an involved analysis, I think we should do an example quickly. We should look at an example problem from Stephen Turns's book briefly to see whether we are now in a position to put some of these concepts together. So this is from Turns's book, 3rd edition book, example 16.1. If you have the book, it is fine, but does not really matter. I just read out the problem. So it says that a combustion wave propagates with a mass flux of 3500 kg per second meter square. So it says that m dot is 3500 kg per second meter squared. Remember again that we are writing m dot even though it should be written as m dot double prime. So I was just trying to make the notation little simpler. So this is kg per meter squared is per unit area and per unit time. So that is why you see the second here. So this is the value of m dot which has been given to us. So combustion wave propagates with a mass flux of 3500 kg per second meter squared through a mixture initially at 298 Kelvin and 1 atmosphere pressure. The molecular weight and specific heat ratio of the mixture, both burnt and unburnt, are 29 kg per kilomole, and so this is the molecular weight, and the specific heat ratio, which is gamma, is 1.3. So 29 is reasonable, isn't it? Because it's close to the molecular weight of air. So you know that there is fuel, but fuel is of course much less than air. So assumption of molecular weight or mixture molecular weight of 29 is okay. Of course, we are doing a simplified analysis. So such simplifications are all right with us. Now gamma is 1.3. So gamma, this is Cp by Cv. Now what he is doing is he is taking these properties to be true both for the burnt gas as well as for the unburnt gas. And the heat release is Q, that is 3.40 into 10 to the power 6 joule per kg. So this is Q, and we have to determine P2 and 1 over rho 2. So that will be, if we can get P2 and 1 over rho 2, then we know the burnt gas state. And then we will also be able to, we will also need to see in which region of the Rankine-Hugoniot curve does point 2 lie. Then the other question that we have to address is, the problem also asks us to determine M2, that is the Mach number of the burnt gases. So we have three things to do: get P2, get 1 over rho 2, so that is state 2, and also get M2. So the problem is done fully in the book. This is an example problem. So you can actually go through this, but here we will not do all the steps, but nevertheless discuss some aspects of it. So we want to get state 2. Now going back to our basic plot. We call this U, we call this L, and call this B, call this C. Okay. Now what has been given? M dot has been given, and of course P1 and T1 has been given. Molecular weight is also given. So actually we can determine rho 1 also, isn't it? So we can determine the state 1, that is we can locate the point A on this P versus 1 over rho plot. So that is not a problem. We have to determine what is state 2. Q has been given, heat release. So how do you get point 2? Now let us think about one issue here, that maybe we can think of actually running a line like this. What I have just now drawn is also a Rayleigh line, the one in black is also a Rayleigh line. Okay. A straight line on this plot running through point A is in fact a Rayleigh line. Okay. So what is a Rayleigh line? Rayleigh line is this P2 minus P1 divided by 1 over rho 2 minus 1 over rho 1 equal to minus m dot squared. That is what we wrote previously. So a Rayleigh line means a given mass flux, a given Rayleigh line. If I draw a Rayleigh line, that is associated with a particular value of mass flux m dot, because it is P2 minus P1 divided by 1 over rho 2 minus 1 over rho 1 is minus m dot squared, correct. So this is a particular mass flux. So and this Rayleigh line will go through the state 1, of course. Okay, so this is a probable line, isn't it? But there can be, you can say that we can draw other lines also. Of course we can draw other lines, and all these are probable lines. But probable lines on which point 2 will lie. Okay. point 2 has to lie on a Rayleigh line. Okay. Now, the point 2 will not only be on a line like this, but it will also be on the Rankine-Hugoniot curve. Okay. So, it is possible that point 2 is here or maybe point 2 is here, correct. Now, you can also argue that maybe I should not have drawn the line like this, maybe the line should be drawn like this, correct. How do I know that it will be on this line? Or it can be also on this line, and if you think of another line here, then that will cut this segment region 3 somewhere, it will also cut region 4 somewhere. So, you can get two other possible points, just as you have got a point here and you have got a point here. Why did we get 2 points? Why not 1?
Depends on which region the point lies.
Yeah. So, see, typically if you draw a Rayleigh line, it will cut at 2 points, is not it? Otherwise, it becomes a tangent. So, that is why you got 2 points here. But if you draw another line maybe this side, then you can get 2 points in the deflagration regions also, regions 3 and 4, correct. Now, I think that this is not a deflagration. Now, why do I think like that? Because the mass flux which has been given is 3500 kg per second meter square. Okay. Now, this appears to be very high. This appears to be very high because this is per unit time, per unit per meter squared area, it is consuming 3500 kg. Okay. So, that is a huge amount. So, that is why I think it will probably be in the detonation region. Detonation waves move faster, okay, that much we have understood by now. We saw in the previous class that the detonation wave speed is actually supersonic. So, we will expect higher amount of mass to get consumed. So, you can think of this wave which is propagating from here to here really very fast, and if it propagates very fast, then it is going to consume the mixture at a faster rate also. Okay. So, that is what my guess is. Plus, if it was a deflagration, deflagrations have very slow mass consumption rates. So, if you have a deflagration which is like a flame, okay, a premixed flame. So, fuel and air are mixed and you have a flame which is moving through that mixture. If it is a deflagration, in other words, if it is a flame, it will move at a few centimeters per second or maybe a few meters per second, but not at a very high speed. So, this mass flux which is m dot, it is what? It is rho into u, that is what we do, is not it? And if the u is small and the density is of the order of 1, then m dot will also be small. M dot will not be as large as 3500 kg per meter square second. So, my guess is that this will be in the detonation branch. So, that is why I have drawn it like this, but we do not have to make this assumption also in solving the problem, but I think it is a good educated guess that it will be in the detonation region. Now, in the detonation region there are 2 possible points. So, if we solve for this state 2 using the equations that we already have, if we solve for the state 2 using the equations that we already have, probably we will get 2 solutions, correct, corresponding to these 2 points which you see. Now, how do we solve? We have at least 2 things with us. We have the Rankine-Hugoniot relation, we also have the Rayleigh line equation. So, let us see which one that Rankine-Hugoniot is. Rankine-Hugoniot is this one, correct, and we also had a Rayleigh line which of course you can see here. So, this is Rankine-Hugoniot, this is Rayleigh line. What we can do is we can use the Rayleigh line equation to write P2 in terms of P1. So, P2 will be, it is very easy to do that, P2 will be in terms of P1, rho 2 and rho 1. P2 will be in terms of, if we use this, write P2 on the left hand side, then P2 will be in terms of P1, rho 1 and rho 2. And m dot is known anyway, m dot has been given in this particular question. So, we have this P2 expression from the Rayleigh line, and then we can place that in the Rankine-Hugoniot relation. In the Rankine-Hugoniot relation, what are the unknowns? Typically, we will have P2 and rho 2 both are unknowns, isn't it? P1 is known, it is given 1 atmosphere. Rho 1 we can calculate because P1 and T1 has been given, and also the molecular weight of the mixture has been given. So, we can get all this. Q has been given. So, we know everything here, but we have two unknowns P2 and rho 2. So, I am playing this trick, I am using the Rayleigh line to write P2 in terms of other things, and then that P2 expression I am putting in here. So, if I do all that, then I should be able to get an equation which is only in terms of rho 2, correct. Again, I am not giving you the details, I am not writing everything, but this is the basic structure of how you proceed in solving this problem, correct. So, we will have a equation which is in rho 2. Now, we have been using rho 2, but Terns has used instead of rho 2 very similarly he has written V2 as 1 over rho 2, which is specific volume, and he gets a quadratic equation by doing what I just now told you. What did I tell you? From Rayleigh line get an expression for P2. That expression should be placed in the Rankine-Hugoniot relation, then the Rankine-Hugoniot relation becomes an equation only for rho 2. So, that is the same thing that he has done, except that he has written it in terms of V2, which is 1 over rho 2. So, that gives you a quadratic equation, and he solves the quadratic equation. So, he will get two solutions, and those two are 0.723 or 0.239. These are the two solutions that you have got. Before that, he also got V1 from ideal gas, pressure, temperature, molecular weight, everything is known. So, V1 is 0.843. What is the unit for small v? Meter cube per kg. Okay, so, these are all meter cube per kg. So, he gets all this V2. And P2, thanks to the Rayleigh line expression that we had, should be P1 this from Rayleigh line, not difficult, that is P2. We know 1 over rho 2, we know 1 over rho 1, we know m dot squared, we know P1. So, we can calculate P2. P2 will again have two values, as you can easily see, P2 will again have two values. So, P2 is 1.57 10 to the power 6 Pascal or 7.50 10 to the power 6 Pascal. Both values are possible. So, this pressure, is it high or is it low? Is it large? Is it large? What is your P1? P1 is of the order of how many pascals? 10 to the power 5. P1 is 1 atmosphere. 1 atmosphere is of the order of 10 to the power 5 Pascal, isn't it? It is actually 1.01325 into 10 to the power 5 Newton per meter square Pascal. So, this is larger, correct? This is much larger, and this is even larger than that. Okay. So, again remember what we did few minutes back. We said that the two possible solutions. So, your pressure can be corresponding to this, or it can be corresponding to this upper one. Right. So, this 1.57 10 to the power 6 is here, and this 7.5 into 10 to the power 6 is here. Okay. So, these are both possible, and it tells you that it is actually indeed going to be a detonation, correct. Otherwise, the pressure would not have been larger. See, if you were on the deflagration branch, did you notice that the pressure would have been less than P1? So, if you were on the deflagration branch, if your Rayleigh line for this particular case went like this, then you would have been in the deflagration, in the two deflagration branches, and your pressure would have been less than P1, less than 1 atmosphere. This is much larger than 1 atmosphere. So, this must be detonation. So, initially we tried thinking about this. We thought that such a large mass flux must correspond to detonation, and that is what it seems like. Okay. Now, we will also calculate few more things. We will calculate U2. So, we got two values of V2, we got two values of P2, and we can get U2 also. How do we get U2? U2 is that relative velocity on the Barn gas side. Okay. How do you get U2?
M dot square equal to rho 2 square V2 square.
Yeah, just m dot by rho 2, that is it. We do not need squares here. So, m dot divided by rho 2, and this U2 we will again have two values. It is either 2530 meter per second, or it is 837 meters per second. Okay. So, that is these are the two values that we get. M dot is the same. 1 over rho 2 actually varies, isn't it? 1 over rho 2 is either 0.723 or 0.239. So, depending on these two values, these are the velocities that you get. That is U2. Now, which one corresponds to what? I mean, there are 2 points, one at lower pressure, one at higher pressure, isn't it? Which one corresponds to what?
So
0.723. 0.723 corresponds to 2530. Okay, and 0.723 also corresponds to 1.57 into 10 to the power 6 Pascal. So, lower pressure. The lower pressure is actually giving you higher value of this U2. Okay. So, that is U2, and we can also calculate the speed of sound. Remember, we have to do the Mach number also. So, to get the speed of sound, we also need T2, because the speed of sound will be square root of gamma RT. Okay. So, to get T2, we will again have this two temperatures. So, one temperature is 3960 Kelvin and the other is 6250 Kelvin. So, these are very high temperatures. Actually, real temperatures may not be like this, because here we are not really doing a sophisticated theory, because at these temperatures all sorts of things like ionization will take place, right. So, we do not attach too much importance to these values, but this is what our theory gives, our simplified theory gives, but it at least tells you that this second temperature is much higher than the first temperature, and both the temperatures are much higher than the temperature that you had initially, which is T1. And we will get C2. C2 is the speed of sound, and C2 will come from square root of gamma r t. So, that will be 1210 meters per second or 1530 meters per second. So, that is C2. So, we can calculate Mach number, which is U2 by C2. So, that is U2 in one case was 2530, in the other case was no, C2 is 1210, and so this is 837 in this case, divided by 1530. So, this is 2.09 and this is 0.55. You had a question.
Yeah, for the stronger detonation wave, velocity should be higher or not?
Stronger detonation wave, velocity should be higher or not. Okay. So, what did we get actually? Yeah, so that has a lower velocity. Okay, this comes directly from the calculations.
It is coming to be lower velocity, but intuitively, it means like this is stronger detonations, velocity should be higher.
No, it's actually, I don't think you can intuitively say this because we did not discuss that sort of logic. It comes directly from this U2 is m dot into 1 over rho 2, and if we go to the, I think I can maybe use this space to explain. So, if you are on this side 1 over rho 2, so if you are on the upper point, okay, on this point, so you have, we are thinking about two possible points, no, one here maybe and the other is here, correct. So, if you are on the upper point, then your 1 over rho 2 is smaller, okay. M dot is the same, so your U2 turns out to be smaller. Yeah, so I think it is not because of intuition that you were saying this, but you were probably thinking because it is called a strong detonation region, isn't it? But it really does not matter to us so much because the strong detonation region also is not practically realizable. So, we do not really get that. Even the weak detonation region is usually not obtained. So, all practical detonations are very close to that upper CJ point, which is U. Okay.
In that strong word, is it actually referred to particular physical quantity? Is
it is strong in the sense that it's actually higher pressure, for example. Okay, certain things are really stronger. Now, we will understand this slightly more. We will not be able to understand this fully, but little later we will think about the detonation wave structure. Okay, so far we do not know. See, so far one deficiency of in our discussion has been that we are just writing equations and solving and saying something, right. But how is physically a deflagration wave different from a detonation wave, that we have not discussed so far. So, it so happens that a detonation wave is actually a reaction zone riding on a shock wave. Okay. So, there is an effect of shock, and because of the shock there is a large change in pressure. So, that is why in the detonation wave region you see higher pressures, for example. Okay. So, that we will be able to discuss in a very restricted manner probably in the next class. So, after this let us see, we have completed this discussion here. We got state 2, we got two possible state 2, isn't it, and we saw that it can be in the weak detonation region or it can be in the strong detonation region, and in all these cases we have got pressure, we got specific volume, we got temperature, we got the relative velocity of the burned gases with respect to the combustion wave, which is U2, and we have also got the Mach numbers, isn't it? Oh. Is there anything else that we got? Speed of sound. Speed of sound also at state 2. We obtained all of these. So, this is to give you a feel of how these calculations can be done, but of course, I did not do the calculations. You need to go and read up this particular example from Turns's book. Now, let us do one more thing which is actually of more importance to us.
Can decide finally conclude that it belongs to either of one to one region?
No, we cannot say which one will happen. We cannot say which one will happen. So, his question is, okay, we got two solutions, two possible solutions for state 2. Okay, one in the weak detonation branch, other is in stronger detonation branch. But the theory that we have done, it does not allow us to conclude which point we will actually get. That depends in fact also on boundary conditions, which is really not something that we have been able to discuss. Okay. So, it just tells you that okay, this is the mass flux. So, these are the two possible states. Now, another message that we got in the last class is that both the weak detonation region and the strong detonation region may not be realizable, and most practical detonations are close to point U. So, if your detonation is at U and if you can calculate the detonation wave velocity, then that is like achieving something. That is like estimating a wave speed in case of detonation using a simplified theory, but that is good because practical detonations are similar to this detonation which is at the upper CJ point. Okay. So, we will spend a few minutes, the next few minutes, seeing how we can do this kind of calculation. So, again there is in fact another example in the book, which is example 16.2, which discusses how to estimate the detonation velocity, but we will not discuss the example so much. We just look at how this calculation can be done.
This example, sir, one was the Mach was 2.09 and the other was 0.55. 0.55 is the subsolute.
Yeah. So, we said that the detonation wave propagates at a supersonic speed, but this is not VW. This is M2 basically. M2 is U2 by C2. Okay, so M2 can be less than 1, M2 can be more than 1. M2 is equal to 1 at point U, at the upper CJ point. That is all we said. Okay.
The thing that you told that was corresponding to VW.
That was corresponding to VW. I said that VW will move at a supersonic speed. Okay. So, now what we are trying to do is get an expression for VW in case of detonation. So, how do we do that? We will again have to use some simplifications to keep things under control, and we will consider point U. You have this in your mind. This is point U, and we are not considering the lower CJ point. So, we are assuming that this is a detonation, and we are interested in calculation of the wave speed at the point U. If your final state 2 corresponds to U. So, how would we do this? So, we know that rho 1 U1 is rho 2 U2. In our simplified perspective, we assume that this is a steady flow situation, one dimensional, and we took rho 1 equal to rho 2 u2 equal to m dot, and we can also write this as rho 2 c2, correct. Do you think we can do that? Yeah, because I have specifically chosen that point u, and for that point u we had done a simple derivation some time back. I think maybe not even in the last class, the lecture before that. So, in that we said that u2 equal to c2 at the Cj points, at both the Cj points in fact, at u and L. All right. So, this tells you that u1 can be calculated as rho 2 by rho 1 into C2, and C2 is gamma r2 T2 to the power half. Okay. We will write r2 here, but towards the end we will make it same as r, just same gas constant, characteristic gas constant for both the unburnt and the burnt. That is how U1 looks like. Are we interested in U1? Yes, we are interested in U1 because U1 is the same as VW. We had done that some time back, isn't it? That includes the assumption that the unburnt mixture is not moving much, it is more or less quiescent. So, this is good, but does this allow you to calculate? No, it does not allow you to calculate directly, because we have to figure out a way of getting what is rho 2 by rho 1 and what is also T2. See, we know gamma, it will come from somewhere because it is a property, specific heat ratio. We can get R2 if we make some assumption like what we did in the problem just a few minutes back about the molecular weight. So, we can get R2. Now, if we can say something about this rho 2 by rho 1 and T2, then we will be able to calculate VW. So, VW will be interesting, and our purpose will be to write rho 2 by rho 1 in terms of things which we know, and T2 also in terms of things that we know. What do we know? We know the unburnt site, for example, we know state 1. So, we can write rho 2 by rho 1 in terms of state 1 and known properties, and T2 also in terms of state 1 and known properties. If you do all that, then we will be able to write an expression for VW, which we can conveniently use to get a number to calculate. So, we make one further assumption. So, first of all, we are doing this detonation calculation for point U, for the upper Cj point, not in the stronger detonation branch, not in the weaker detonation branch. Okay. Plus, we will assume that P2 by P1 is much greater than 1. We can do that. For detonation, we know that we are on the high pressure side, and just remember the calculations that we did few minutes back. P2 was of the order of 10 to the power 6, whereas P1 is of the order of 10 to the power 5 Newton per meter squared. P1 was atmospheric pressure. So, P2 by P1 much greater than 1 is reasonable. Okay. Of course, if it is in the stronger detonation branch, then we saw that P2 by P1 is even larger, but we are not even considering that. We are considering only this point U, and we expect the pressure to be much higher than P1, expect the pressure to be much higher than the atmospheric pressure if your P1 is atmospheric. Okay. So, it is all a question of now using this along with this one and get a convenient expression for VW. So, what we do is we write the momentum equation, and we divide by rho 2 u2 squared. And we will take this term to the other side. So, this term was taken to the other side, and then the P2 related term and this term can be clubbed together in this form. So, we can write this, not difficult. And we will do another thing here. We will, instead of rho 1 u1 squared, this rho 1 u1 squared is rho 1 u1 into u1. So, that is rho 2 u2 into u1. Rho 1 u1 and rho 2 u2 are the same. So, rho 2 u2 squared, and this will give you u1 by u2. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. And this is rho 2 by rho 1. Correct. So, rho 2 by rho 1 is okay. So, that is good, but we can make it better. We can say that rho 2 by rho 1 is approximately P2 by rho 2 u2 squared plus 1, because P1 by P2 is really small in comparison to 1. P2 by P1 is much greater than 1. Okay. Do not bother if you cannot write at the same pace that I write. You can always catch up later. So, we have rho 2 by rho 1 this from the previous page, and this is equal to C2 squared. Remember, we are doing all this for the upper Cj point, capital U, and this is 1 plus this is what rho 2 R2 T2, same as P2. So, that means this is just 1 plus 1 over gamma, or rho 2 by rho 1 is gamma plus 1 over gamma. Okay, so this was a little tricky. I mean, you have to know how to bring rho 2 by rho 1 to a convenient form, and that's what we had done. We had taken the momentum conservation equation and divided it by rho 2 u2 squared, and then arranged it in some way so that we got p1 by p2 as a ratio, and applied the fact that 1 minus p1 over p2 is approximately equal to 1. So we applied that, and then finally we got rho 2 by rho 1 equal to gamma plus 1 by gamma. Again, why are we doing all this? Because we are trying to get the wave velocity, the combustion wave velocity, the detonation wave velocity, and this has two things that we have to take care of. We have this expression for the combustion wave speed, and this has a rho 2 by rho 1. I said that we wanted to write this in a form in which we can easily calculate this. So that has been achieved now, because rho 2 by rho 1 has been shown to be equal to gamma plus 1 by gamma, and now we have this next job is to write T2 in a convenient form in terms of things that we know. Okay. So you can very well guess that if we want to go to deriving a convenient expression for T2, then we must use the energy equation, because that's where the temperatures are, okay, explicitly. So to get T2, we'll use CpT1 plus U1 squared by 2 plus Q, CpT2 plus U2 squared by 2. And this will require some work, and some steps I might skip, but I'll broadly tell you what this is, how this is done. So this is okay, this is straightforward, and maybe if you look at this, you will notice that maybe this can be written in terms of u1 squared by u2 squared, etc. You can, if you can, from here you can take u2 squared out, then it will become u2 squared within brackets u1 by u2 squared minus 1. So you got a u1 by u2 ratio. U1 by u2 is same as rho 2 by rho 1. Rho 2 by rho 1 has been arrested. We got rho 2 by rho 1 is equal to gamma plus 1 by gamma. So if you do that, then that will help us, because then u2 by u1 is gone, and the other fact that we can use is that u2 is known. U2 is equal to C2, so u2 can be written in terms of T2. Okay. So I'm jumping a step or two, but this should not be difficult. It will require, so this space from here to here requires some work that you have to do at home. Okay. This work you have to do at home. So that is like this. So obviously this gamma R2 T2 is actually C2 squared, which is U2 squared. So that U2 squared is what I was talking about, that we took U2 squared out from here. So not difficult, and now you can see the things are looking good already. We have T2 here, we have T2 here. Other things are known, correct? Other things are known. So T1 is known, Q will be known for a mixture that you have. Cp, okay, it will be available to you. You have made some assumptions regarding Cp, and R2 will be known. So this can all be done, but we will we'll have to do a few more steps just to make it look better. We'll have to take T2 to the other side and some things like that. Finally, we will be able to get this. So, from here to here, again more work, fine. This has to be remembered. You can leave space in your copies and then fill up that space with the intermediate steps. So, this gives you a certain expression for T2. And this is T2, that is what we wanted. We have in the VW expression, we have rho 2 by rho 1, we also have T2. So, we can place all this, we got an expression for T2, we have rho 2 by rho 1 equal to gamma plus 1 by gamma, we can do all that. And then finally, we will get VW this. So, this will work out for you. We can get another expression if we use different CPs for the bond side and the unbound side, you can get a more complicated expression, but for our purpose this will be all right. This is on the assumption of equal CPs on both sides. This is VW, and before we close, I will just like to tell you what this example 16.2 is. In example 16.2, so this is example 16.2 of turns, 3rd edition, page 628. So, there they are talking about C2H2 air. So, acetylene air stoichiometric mixture, initially at 298 Kelvin and 1 atmosphere, neglecting dissociation in the products, we try to calculate the detonation velocity. And so, he is making a product composition assumption. So, the products, for products he is assuming that there is no dissociation. So, the products are CO2, H2O, and of course, nitrogen is there. Okay, stoichiometric mixture of acetylene, if it burns, and if you are saying that okay, we do not want equilibrium and all that, so the products will be CO2, H2O and nitrogen, and you can calculate the composition. Why is all of this required? He is doing all of this to get the CP of the product side, you get the molecular weight of the product side, things like that, and he is calculating R2, which is universal gas constant divided by the molecular weight of the product mixture. So, if you have if you assume that there is complete combustion happening, CO2 and H2O getting produced, then you got a product composition. From the product composition, you can get the molecular weight of the product mixture. You can use that to calculate R2 also, and you will also have to get Q. Q is the heat of combustion that we saw, but that is per unit mass of the mixture. So, again that can also be done because you have assumed the reactants, you have assumed what products will get produced. So, you can do all that. And finally, this is the interesting part, the VW turns out to be 1998 meters per second, okay, and T2 is 3533 Kelvin. So, this is something which we did not do in the last question. In the last question, we did not calculate the wave velocity. The last example 16.1, we located point 2, state 2, but we did not say anything about the wave velocity. So, here in the context of the simplified theory that we have for the upper Cj point, we can calculate the wave speed, and this turns out to be about 2 kilometers per second. Okay, 1998 meters per second is like 2 kilometers per second, and which is very, very high. if you do a mixture, if you take a tube and then fill it up with a mixture in the lab, a short tube, and you ignite it, let's say if you've kept both the ends of the tube open, you are likely to get a deflagration, not a detonation, and that deflagration will move, as I have been saying, at a few centimeters per second, okay, or maybe at most if you take hydrogen, and if the conditions are laminar, it will still be 2 meters per second. If it is turbulent, somehow it can be little more than that, but it will never be anything like this. So this is 2 kilometers per second for acetylene. If you have something which is more reactive like hydrogen, it can be much more than this. It can be more than 2 kilometers per second also. So this is the point, that when we are dealing with combustible mixtures, sometimes we will get this. Now our discussion is still not complete, and then the next class, that is class on Wednesday, we will discuss some aspects of what is the detonation wave, and also a little bit about when we can get a detonation. All right, we have not discussed that so far. We are just saying that if it is a detonation, then what is the wave speed, but when do we get a detonation? We will discuss that just a little bit, not in its entirety, but to some extent. So we will stop here. Thank you.